Hi, my name's Eric, and as part of our faith readings on Sundays, I'll be reading you The Pilot, America's oldest Catholic newspaper. This pilot is dated Tuesday, the 16th of December, 2025. And the headline, at least 15 killed in anti-Jewish terror attack at Bondi Beach in Australia. Two gunmen targeted Jewish beachgoers at an event celebrating the first day of Hanukkah in an apparent terror attack at Sydney's Bondi Beach, New South Wales police said. In an overnight statement sent to OSV News, Archbishop Anthony Fisher of Sydney said that, quote, "As we follow the horrific news coming from this evening's shooting at Bondi Beach, let us pray for those who have been killed or injured, the many who were forced to run for their lives, and our emergency service workers who are right now trying to keep people safe." Archbishop Fisher asked that Our Lady, Queen of Peace, intercede for all affected and for our beloved city at this time. At a press conference in Sydney, December 14th, just hours after the shooting, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns told journalists that 12 people were dead, including one of the gunmen. Later, the death toll rose to 15, and The Guardian reported a 10-year-old girl, a rabbi, and Holocaust survivor were among the victims. The second gunman, police confirmed, was in custody and in critical condition. According to authorities, over 40 people were wounded and taken to St. Vincent's Hospital. What should have been a night of peace and joy, celebrated in that community with families and supporters, has been shattered by this horrifying, evil attack, Minns said. Our heart bleeds for Australia's Jewish community tonight. I can only imagine the pain that they're feeling right now to see their loved ones killed as they celebrate this ancient holiday, he added. The attack occurred in the early evening as hundreds were gathered for a Hanukkah celebration at Archer Park, a grassy area in Bondi Beach. A video circulating online showed a beachgoer tackling and disarming one of the gunmen while the other gunman fired from a nearby bridge. At the press conference, Mal Lanyon, police commissioner for the state of New South Wales, said he could not confirm if there was a third offender, but wanted, quote, to make sure there's no stone left unturned. I cannot confirm there is a third offender, but I want to make sure there's no stone left unturned, Lanyon said. He also confirmed that police located a vehicle near Bondi Beach that contained several improvised explosives, and that, quote, we have our rescue bomb disposal unit there at the moment working on that. In an address following the shooting, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the attack was an act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism, that has struck the heart of our nation, and that an attack on Jewish Australians is an attack on every Australian. Every Australian tonight will be, like me, devastated by this attack on our way of life. There's no place for hate, no place for this hate, violence, and terrorism in our nation, Albanese said. Let me be clear, we will eradicate it. Amidst this vile act of violence and hate will emerge a moment of national unity where Australians across the board will embrace their fellow Australians of Jewish faith, he added. Robert Gregory, the head of the Australian Jewish Association, criticized Albanese's government, saying the attack was a tragedy but entirely foreseeable. The Albanese government was warned so many times, but failed to take adequate actions to protect the Jewish community, Gregory said in a statement published on the association's X account. Tonight, many Jews are pondering whether they have a future in Australia. Our thoughts are with the community and all the impacted, some of whom we are close to, he wrote. Israeli President Isaac Herzog expressed his condolences to the victims and their families and called on the Australian government to act on rising violence against Jewish people in the country. We repeat our alerts time and again to the Australian government to seek action and fight against the enormous wave of anti-Semitism which is plaguing Australian society, Herzog said. From the Nation section of the pilot, the headline reads, Rhode Island Catholic Bishop offers prayers in wake of shooting at Brown University. Providence, Rhode Island. Bishop Bruce Lewandowski of Providence offered prayers for all affected by this tragedy in the wake of a December 13th shooting at Brown University that left 2 students dead and 9 others injured. Officials said December 14th that a person of interest in connection with the shooting was in police custody. That person was later let go. The shooting, which took place during the university's final exams, happened just after 4 p.m. Eastern Time on December 13th at the Barris and Hawley building, which houses the university's School of Engineering and its physics department, WCVB-TV reported. As are many, I am deeply saddened and troubled by the senseless shooting today at Brown University in Providence, Bishop Lewandowski said in a statement. Let us unite in prayer for those who lost their lives, for the injured, for the Brown University community, and all affected by this tragedy. May God continue to guide our elected officials, law enforcement, and first responders as they work to keep everyone safe, he added. The Diocese of Fall River, the Diocese of Providence, offers its resources, clergy and personnel, and charitable assistance wherever needed. May God bless us all, and may Our Lady of Providence keep us in her care. The Providence Journal reported that several area businesses and events in Providence were closed or canceled on December 14th in an abundance of caution. Representative Gabe Amo, a Democrat from Rhode Island, told ABC News on December 14th the community has been really hurt in a way that no one expects, and it does not have to be this way. Too many of our communities have to deal with these sort of tragedies, he said. Brown University announced it's canceled all remaining undergraduates, graduate, and medical classes and exams for the semester following the shooting. Also from the Nation section, the headline reads, Illinois legalizes assisted suicide despite outcry from bishops and pro-life advocates, by Gina Christian and Simone Orendane of OSV News. Illinois has become the 12th state, along with the District of Columbia, to legalize assisted suicide, amid outcry among the state's Catholic bishops and other pro-life and disability advocates. On December 12th, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed SB 1950 into law, allowing terminally ill adults who are Illinois residents to end their lives through self-administered lethal drugs prescribed by a physician. Terminal illness is defined in the law, which takes effect in September of 2026, as an incurable and irreversible disease that will, within reasonable medical judgment, result in death within 6 months. Major depressive disorder alone does not qualify as a terminal disease, the law states. The terminal diagnosis must be confirmed after an in-person evaluation by a physician, with a second physician concurring. Physicians must inform patients of feasible alternatives to assisted suicide, including treatment options, palliative, comfort and hospice care, and pain control. Written and oral requests from the patient alone are required in order to receive lethal drugs for ending one's life. Healthcare professionals are not required to participate in the process. Those that do are not subject to civil or criminal liability. In a statement issued December 12th, Pritzker said the law's approval would allow patients faced with debilitating terminal illnesses to make a decision, in consultation with a doctor, that helps them avoid unnecessary pain and suffering at the end of their lives. Pritzker's approval of the measure comes after a number of efforts to prevent the bill from becoming law. On December 10th, the Illinois Catholic bishops sent a letter to Pritzker, urging him to veto the bill and to instead ensure that the state's residents have compassionate, loving care provided by trained professionals and or loving family members at the end of their lives. The following night, dozens of the measure's opponents braved the damp chill to hold a vigil outside the governor's downtown Chicago office. Doctors and advocates for persons with disabilities spoke out against the bill, pleading that Pritzker veto it. In November, Access Living, a Chicago-based disability advocacy organization, condemned the bill's passage, warning that its clients, mostly persons of color with low income who rely on Medicaid and other services, will endure the brunt of this harmful legislation. Illinois' bill does not offer freedom. It harms people with disabilities, the group said in a November 3rd statement. Specifically, said Access Living President and CEO Karen Tamley in the statement, the law sets a dangerous precedent for Illinois residents with disabilities, particularly in the same moment we're experiencing cuts to Medicaid and access to health care. Tamley said that legalizing physician-assisted suicide in Illinois will place our community at the risk of the subtle but dangerous pressure to end our lives rather than get the care we need. In their letter to Pritzker, the bishops said the legislation is not about compassion. While the law specifies a patient be informed of alternatives to directly ending their lives, the bishops stress that the law itself requires no services to be offered to the person requesting death. In addition, they said, there is no requirement that family be near the loved one at the point of death, or that the person is not being coerced into ending their life. This is already dangerously played out in other states with these laws in place. This is not compassion, said the bishops. They called for expanded access to properly funded quality hospice and palliative care, lack of access to which can lead many to seek to end their lives. Real compassion demands we invest in and ensure access to excellent pain management and holistic support for the terminally ill, allowing them to live their final days in comfort and peace, surrounded by family, friends, and other emotional supports, the bishops said. They also predicted that the law will also lead to more suicide in Illinois, citing research by scholar David Payton of Nottingham University that detected a significant increase in total suicide where it's been legalized. It defies common sense for our state to enact a 988 suicide hotline, increase funding for suicide prevention programs, and then pass a law that, based on the experience of other jurisdictions, results in more suicide, said the bishops. The law stands to increase what's sometimes called suicide tourism, which sees individuals travel to destinations where suicide is legal in order to end their lives. Other states eventually eliminated their state residency requirement, thus opening assisted suicide to anyone in the world, the bishops noted. Saying they believe within a few short years the alleged safeguards will no longer exist, they asked, what stops someone who just wants to stop living from accessing medical assistance to do so? The bishops pointed to Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying, or MAID, program. Since the program's enactment in 2016, a total of 76,475 individuals have ended their lives, according to an annual report that was published in November by the Canadian government. In the U.S., 5,239 patients died through assisted suicide during the period 1998 to 2020, with a median age of death 74, according to a 2022 analysis by researchers at Rutgers University, Lehigh University, and the Hastings Center. During the December 11th vigil, Robert Gilligan, executive director of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, said that in the 9 months until the law takes effect, his office would be combing through the text, including its provision on conscience rights for healthcare workers. We feel that this bill, as it's currently written, would require a physician in a certain situation to refer somebody who requests assisted suicide. And we feel that the existing protections in the Illinois Healthcare Right of Conscience Act are not adequately represented in this bill. So we're going to look at that, said Gilligan, who also hinted at possible litigation to challenge the law. Chicago's auxiliary bishop, Mark Bartosich, who worked with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops' Secretariat of Pro-Life Activities, and who also attended the vigil, lamented the sneakiness of the circumstances surrounding SB 1950, which included an uncertain and largely unpublicized signing date. Bishop Bartosich also echoed objections of Republican lawmakers such as State Representative Bill Haughter, a physician, who objected to a lack of transparency in the bill's process. Haughter also noted the bill violated the physician's oath to, quote-unquote, do no harm. The American Medical Association's Code of Ethics states that physician-assisted suicide is fundamentally incompatible with a physician's role as a healer. It would be difficult or impossible to control, and it would pose serious societal risks. Catholic teaching states that intentional euthanasia, whatever its forms or motives, is murder. Catechism 2324. The teaching of the Catholic Church is quite specific, with the Second Vatican Council condemning euthanasia or willful self-destruction among the moral infamies that poison human society and are a supreme dishonor to the Creator. However, the Church also says it can be morally acceptable for people to forego extraordinary medical treatment. The Catechism of the Catholic Church notes that discontinuing medical procedures that are burdensome, dangerous, extraordinary, or disproportionate to the expected outcome can be illegitimate. It's the refusal of overzealous treatment. Here one does not will to cause death. One's inability to impede it is merely accepted. Catechism 2278. Gina Christian is a multimedia reporter for OSV News. You can follow her on X at Gina Jessie Reyna. Simone Orendane is an OSV News correspondent who writes for OSV News from Chicago. Our next headline: Vigil outside ICE headquarters honors Our Lady of Guadalupe. Offers prayers for immigrants, by Kate Scanlon of OSV News. In Washington, a prayer service outside the Washington headquarters of Immigration and Customs Enforcement on December 12th, the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, paid homage to Mary as the patroness of the Americas and showed support for our immigrant brothers and sisters, organizers told OSV News. The feast marks how in 1531, Our Lady of Guadalupe is said to have appeared to St. Juan Diego at Tepeyac Hill in modern-day Mexico City, later producing her image on his cloak. As patroness of the Americas, Our Lady of Guadalupe has been known to identify with those who are being repressed or suffering under an empire. Judy Coode, Communications Director for Pax Christi USA, told OSV News. Magine White, Associate Director of the National Advocacy Center of the Sisters of the Good Shepherd, echoed that sentiment. So our purpose is focusing on Our Lady of Guadalupe, because she was a witness that God is here for all peoples, and we believe that everyone has dignity and rights, and therefore should be allowed to live peacefully, White told OSV News. Our faith compels us to be witnesses, Coode added. We're witnesses to the injustices that are taking place in this country, the injustice being inflicted on those who are immigrants, and we're called to come together as people of faith. We are praying for just immigration laws and for the rights and dignity of all those that have been, in our opinion, illegally detained and are suffering under ICE custody, as well as the ongoing unjust seizure of individuals and the disappearance of people, White said. Pax Christi USA and National Advocacy Center were among sponsors of the prayer vigil. The others were Mary Knoll, Franciscan Action Network, Quixote Center, Leadership Conference of Women, Religious, Sisters of Mercy, and Network, a Catholic social justice lobby. In November, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops voted overwhelmingly to issue a rare group statement voicing our concern here for immigrants at their annual fall plenary assembly in Baltimore. The statement, a special pastoral message on immigration, did not name President Donald Trump, but it came as a growing number of bishops have acknowledged that some of the Trump administration's immigration policies risk presenting the church with both practical challenges in administering pastoral support and charitable endeavors, as well as religious liberty challenges. The statement marked the first such message from the body of bishops since 2013, when they issued their response to the federal government's contraceptive mandate in the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, stating, "We bishops stand united in our resolve to resist this heavy burden and protect our religious freedom." Asked about the special pastoral message on immigration, Coode said, "It's the decent thing to do, it's the right thing to do, to protect immigrants." The bishops have immigrants in their own families, she said. They have immigrant neighbors, and they're seeing just the brutality that's taking place, and it's just outrageous. Catholic social teaching on immigration balances three interrelated principles: the right of persons to migrate in order to sustain their lives and those of their families, the right of a country to regulate its borders and control immigration, and a nation's duty to regulate its borders with justice and mercy. Kate Scanlon is a national reporter for OSV News covering Washington. You can follow her on X at KG Scanlon. In world news, from the Pilot, the Boston Pilot, on Guadalupe Feast Day, Pope prays leaders shun lies, hatred, division, disrespect for life, by Carol Glatz of the Catholic News Service. In Vatican City, Pope Leo XIV prayed for Mary's maternal intercession so that she would help nations avoid lies and hatred and instruct leaders to protect the dignity of all human life. He also prayed that families find strength, young people find meaning, and people of faith seek greater communion, because within the Church, Mother, your children cannot be divided. In his homily at Mass for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe in St. Peter's Basilica on December 12th, Pope Leo also asked Mary to support him in his ministry as the successor of St. Peter, and grant that, trusting in your protection, we may advance ever more united with Jesus and among ourselves toward the eternal dwelling place that he has prepared for us and where you await us. While it was his first Mass marking the Marian feast day at the Vatican as Pope, as Cardinal Robert F. Prevost, he had already served as the main celebrant at the altar during the December 12th Mass in 2024 and 2023, when he was prefect of the dicastery for bishops and president of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. Pope Francis has presided over both of those Masses, but due to bouts of illness, he remained seated during the celebrations and gave the homily. Pope Leo, who spent more than 2 decades as a missionary in Peru, gave the homily in Spanish and recalled how the Marian apparitions in 1531 in Tepeyac, Mexico, awakened in the inhabitants of America the joy of knowing that they're loved by God. Devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe is deeply rooted in Latin America. According to tradition, Mary appeared to St. Juan Diego, an indigenous Mexican, and left her pregnant image imprinted on his cloak. It was said she assured him in his native language not to be afraid because, "Am I not here, who am your mother?" offering protection, health, and safety in the folds of her mantle. It is the voice that echoes the promise of divine fidelity, the presence that sustains when life becomes unbearable, especially amidst unceasing conflicts, injustices, and pains that seek relief, Pope Leo said. Her motherhood makes us discover ourselves as children, and as children, we will turn to her to ask what must be done, especially how to grow in faith when our strength fails and shadows grow, the Pope said. Referring to her son Jesus, she will tenderly reply, "Do whatever he tells you." Pope Leo then prayed for Mary's intercession, asking that she teach nations that want to be your children not to divide the world into irreconcilable factions, not to allow hatred to mark their history or lies to write their memory. Show them that authority must be exercised as service and not as domination, he said. Instruct their leaders in their duty to safeguard the dignity of every person during all stages of their life, and may these people create places where every person can feel welcome. He prayed that Mary would accompany young people so they could find strength in Christ to choose what is good and the courage to remain firm in the faith, even when the world pushes them in another direction. Show them that your Son walks beside them. May nothing afflict their hearts so that they may fearlessly welcome God's plans, he said, praying that she also help keep young people safe from the threats of crime, addiction, and the danger of a meaningless life. Seek out, Mother, those who have strayed from the Holy Church, he said. May your gaze reach them where ours cannot. Break down the walls that separate us and bring them back home with the power of your love. Pope Leo then implored Mary to touch the hearts of those who sow discord toward your Son's desire that they may all be one, and restore them to the charity that makes communion possible. For within the Church, Mother, your children cannot be divided. Strengthen families, he prayed. Following your example, may parents educate their children with tenderness and firmness so that every home may be a school of faith. He prayed that those who teach be inspired to share the truth with the gentleness, precision, and clarity that comes from the gospel. And he prayed that the clergy and consecrated men and women find support and encouragement to be faithful, prayerful, and revitalized. Holy Virgin, may we, like you, keep the gospel in our hearts, he said, and help Christians understand we are not the owners of this message, but like Saint Juan Diego, we are its simple servants. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Boston Pilot for today, Tuesday, December 16th of 2025. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.